I want to mention someone who was never able to be present on the plains of Nainawa. Someone who cried because he was never able to be there defending Abi Abdullah al-Hussain. Someone who was dispatched by Imam Hussain, his own cousin, to the city of Kufa as his own special attaché. He was Imam Hussein's ambassador to the Kufans. Imam Hussain sent Muslim ibn Aqeel. May God's peace and everlasting blessings be upon him. He dispatched them to the Kufans with one message. The message was, Inni arsaltu ilaykum akhi wa ibn ammi wa thiqati min Ahlulbayt Muslim ibn Aqeel. Suffice to say that about Muslim, and you'll know what kind of a character he displayed. What kind of a man he really was. Imam Hussain said to the Kufans that I'm sending to you my cousin, my brother, and the one who is the most trustworthy from among my family members. وَثِقَتِي مِنْ أَهْلِ بَيْتِي. He was sent to the city of Kufa, and he had the fame, he had the glory, he had the glamour that anyone sent by Imam al-Hussain specifically with a message to be delivered would naturally have. He was greeted by the masses outside the city. They all came and welcomed him with open arms. They took him into their own homes. They offered to throw banquets at his honor. They offered him to come to their own homes. They prayed one of the largest congregational prayers behind him while he was the leader. And yet, within a few hours, the tables were turned. Muslim ibn Aqeel found himself not having a single house to which he was welcome. Not having a single family which would take him in. It's hard. I swear to God, finding yourself after having such former glory, such former honor, finding yourself suddenly in the middle of the night with no one to say salam to you. Walking down the streets not knowing where to go. And we won't know what that really means until, God forbid, we find ourselves in that position. But just try to picture. And in these nights, we're not trying to tell the tragedy of Imam Hussain in detail. I'm not trying to do that. We never do that. We might give you more of a glimpse on the day of Ashura if we have a chance. But during these nights, all we're trying to offer is snapshots of what happened. And you'll get the picture. Muslim ibn Aqeel is walking down the narrow streets and alleys of the city of Kufa. He goes from one area to another. Remember, this was his own city. This was the city in which Muslim grew up. This was the city that Muslim knew the streets, he knew the neighborhoods, he knew the families, he knew the homes, he knew the addresses, and yet he had nowhere to go. When suddenly he approached the house, the door was open, there was a woman standing outside. Muslim ibn Aqeel approached her. He said to her, "Can I have a drink?" She said, "Sure." She went back into the house, came out a while later. She offered him some drink, a bowl of water, when suddenly she noticed her little daughter was crying. So she looked at the strange man and she said to him, "Did you say something to my daughter?" She looked at her daughter and said, Did this stranger say anything to hurt you? Did he do anything to hurt you? Why are you crying?" Suddenly that daughter of hers looked at her and said, "Mother, no, I didn't cry because he said something. I'm crying because I heard him say that I have no family members to go to in this city. That I have no home to be welcomed in this city." So she said to him, "Who are you?" He said, "I am Muslim, the ambassador of Abi Abdullah al-Hussain." That woman was Tawa. The woman said, "You are my master. You're more than welcome in my house. Please come on in." She took him in. He spent that night. كان قائما وقاعدا راكعا وساجدا. He did nothing but pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala until the morning, when her son, who was a traitor, a spy working for Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad, he came and he noticed that Muslim was there. He was looking for the bounty that was offered in exchange for the head of Muslim ibn Aqeel. So he went back, he rushed to Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad and told him that Muslim is in my house. If you want him, you better come quick. So the army began approaching the house. The traditions and the historians tell us that Muslim ibn Aqeel, when he heard the armies and the horsemen approaching the house, he told Talha, hand my sword over to me, because this is the final chapter of my life. This is the end. I'm going to have to go and confront my enemies. He went outside and he fought them in such a brave fashion, in such a ferocious fashion, that the commander of the army, he sent a message back to Ibn Ziyad. He told him, do you think you've sent me to one of the grocers of Basra or to one of the farmers of Kufa? You've sent me to one of the bravest men in the city of Kufa. I need backup and I need people to come and help me here. They came. He was outnumbered. He was wounded. He fell in one of the pits that was prepared by them for Muslim ibn Aqeel. They took him, they tied him up and took him to Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad. When he got there, they took him up to the top of that building, to the top of the state, the official state tower. And they took him there. At the last moment, he looked towards the city of Karbala, towards the desert of Nainawa, and he began to cry. A man standing next to him said to him, how could you cry? I saw you fight ferociously. I saw and noticed that you're one of the bravest men I've ever seen. How could you cry when you're about to be killed? He said, by God, I'm not crying for what is going to happen to me. وَإِنَّمَا أَبْكِي لِغَرِيبٍ هو قادم إليكم. A man who is coming towards you, not knowing what has happened to me. Oh Umar ibn Sa'd, I ask you and I beseech you, we have a relationship, a blood relationship. I ask you to do one thing for me, and that is to inform Abi Abdullah al-Hussain that I have been killed, that his ambassador has been killed. So please, Ya Aba Abdullah, come no more to the city of Kufa. The traditions tell us that he was taken and thrown from the top of the building. People were downstairs wondering what is going to happen to him. Is he going to be given a pardon? Is he going to be taken back? What is going to happen when they suddenly see a body tumbling down to the earth? They saw him and suddenly there were kids that came. They tied his legs to a rope and they began dragging him down the streets and alleys of Kufa. The traditions say that Abu Abdullah al-Hussain was on his way to Kufa when the news came, and it broke Imam Hussein's heart. Muslim has been killed. Suddenly Imam Hussain hadn't told anyone. He suddenly got up and he went towards the camp. He started looking for something. What is he looking for? No one knows. When Imam Hussain suddenly approaches Hamida, the little girl, the daughter of Muslim ibn Aqeel, he approaches her, he takes her, embraces her, begins to kiss her, he puts her on his lap, begins to wipe his hand on her head. When she suddenly realizes what is happening, why am I getting this special treatment? Why is Imam Hussain treating me differently? She says to Abi Abdullah al-Hussain, Ayyam, hal hasala makruhun liwalidi? I see you treating me the way you treat orphans. Has something happened to my father? Is my father killed? Where is my father? Abu Abdullah al-Hussain says to her, oh honey, I am your father. I'll be your father from now on. And my little daughters, they'll be your sisters. Don't worry, it's okay. Allahu Akbar. Traditions say that on the day of Ashura, as Imam Hussain was getting ready to approach, to go towards the battlefield, suddenly he heard a very faint cry. He looked down and it was his daughter Sukaina. Sukaina called out, Abba, I have one last request. I want you to alight from the back of your train, from your horse. I want you to come down. Abu Abdullah al-Hussain, of course, honey, I'm going to grant you that wish. I'll do whatever you want. He came from the back of his horse. He came down. Then she said to him, oh father, I want you to sit down right next to me. Imagine a 5 or 6-year-old girl, a 10-year-old girl. She's asking her father to sit down. Imam Hussain doesn't know why. He sits right next to her. Then she says to him, oh father, could you do me a favor? Could you please hold me in your arms? Could you hold me and embrace me? And then she says, oh father, could you wipe your hand over my head? Because I saw you treat the orphans like that. And I know that there won't be anyone to do the same thing to me after you're killed. It's so hard. الأناصر